we're at the Hatch Outfitters, with the Spot the Truck campaign.
Yeah.
We're traveling from the Keys to New York City to Detroit to, all these different things. Obviously, you've seen the trailer for the movie.
Yeah.
It's the first fishing movie in about 30 years.
Yeah, it's been a while
to come out. So we're pretty excited about that for the industry. Kind of put a little bit more light to fly fishing, because everyone knows what fishing is. But then you get some of these people from across the country that are like, what's fly fishing? What's the concepts? You see these guys casting, 1,000 times and throwing a fly and stripping it. Not a lot of people understand.
Especially not thought of that much once you leave certain like zones of the country. Like if you're in Montana, everyone in Montana knows 100%. Fly fishing. But yeah, there's certain maybe gaps in the road where people aren't as familiar with it. Like a lot of people don't think of Tennessee when they think of fly fishing, but our shop, we kind of cater to everything. We gear people up for going out west, doing the big trout western stuff. We gear a lot of people up for saltwater fishing, even though we're 6 hours from the nearest coastline. We have a really dedicated following of saltwater anglers. And then what we have an abundance of here in Chattanooga is just warm water opportunities. So we have all these lakes and rivers and creeks. I mean, it's just this huge watershed here, most of which is like warm water fishing for smallmouth bass and striped bass and largemouth and things like that. But then because of all this water, we have a bunch of dams, and the dams provide a whole different like slew of opportunities, whether it's trout fishing beneath the ones that are a little bit deeper and a little bit colder, or like we have downtown, a warm water dam system that just, provides this really strange but cool urban fishery where there's trains and there's dams and highways and all the stuff you wouldn't expect to see when you're fly fishing. So we have this great base of water here, but then we gear people up to travel. But maybe not the first place you think of when you think of fly fishing.
Not at all. That's one thing I'm getting used to on this journey is trains.
Yeah.
First city I get to is Tybee,
or
town, or whatever you want to call that. Yeah. That little island off Georgia.
Yeah.
A train derails in front of me 5 minutes out of where I'm going, so which I wasn't used to.
Yeah. Well, when you're in the Low Country, kind of things move at their own pace, which is originally where I'm from, the Low Country of South Carolina, not too far from that area. So yeah, I've kind of grew up in the fresh to saltwater community. So trout fishing, is something new for me. I grew up a long ways from any trout. So that's something that I think brings a lot of people to the sport. It's probably what got me going at first. Picking up a fly rod when I was a kid meant catching bluegill and that sort of thing. But as you travel and move around the country, you start looking at new opportunity. And when I started moving to higher elevation zones like this, it was like, oh, there's trout, and I have to figure out this whole thing.
Yeah, it's a whole new species to try to learn.
Yeah.
So are people coming here to fly fish or in fish in general, or is it generally people that live here? Like, is this a destination for fly fishing?
Not per se. The Chattanooga is a tourist town. It's called America's Scenic City. It's really beautiful. There's a lot going on, plenty of like tourist activities, and it's a really big outdoorsy town. So you do get the tourism both from just like the city, the aquarium, the downtown, the arts center, all that. But then you also have this huge contingent of people that come here to rock climb, to whitewater raft, and also hang gliding. There's like these three really big niche communities that like come to Chattanooga because apparently some of the best rock climbing, some of the best landscapes for the hang gliding, and we have really good whitewater rafting as well. So you already have like these people coming here, but the shop itself, while we do get some tourists coming through, and we're happy to put those people on a boat and do a guided trip, mostly for trout. Mainly we are a fly shop for Chattanooga and its citizens, and people will come here to gear up for wherever their adventure takes them. So while we try and talk a lot about like the local fisheries and getting people to enjoy what we've got here in town, for the most part we are kind of gearing people up to wherever they're going next.
To travel next.
Yeah.
And how long has this fly shop been here?
6.5 years.
Oh,
yeah. So relatively new in the scheme of things, but we feel like we've kind of gotten over
Yeah,
that
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 initial
new
hump.
business hump. Yeah, yeah, and we're really big on community, so that's been a big part. I mean, you can see we're sitting at the bar.
Yeah, that's something
Uh,
that I think we're at stop 5,
yeah,
give or take, on our list of stuff. And first thing I noticed when I walked in, I was like, they have a full bar,
yeah, yeah. At
and
least a beer bar.
well,
The
yeah, I mean, but still, you got a nice live edge table, and
yeah,
you got beer taps, and if you look on the wall behind us, you got your local mugs.
yeah,
Where
the Mug Club. Yeah, we're I wish I could take credit for that idea. A buddy of mine came up with it first, and just it's a no-brainer now, looking back, to have a beer bar in the shop, because it's just, in my opinion, fly shops are best when they're like a hub, kind of
yeah,
a spot for the community, whether it's like fly tying nights or different events. We throw a bunch of parties throughout the year and random events and tying nights and that sort of thing. So this is kind of like the meeting the meeting point for everyone. You know what I mean? I think I was telling you, you come here on a Friday afternoon around 5 o'clock. We're going to see more like a bar than a fly shop, because we have so many of these regulars that come in just to have a beer and unwind after the work week and that sort of thing. So yeah, for us, it's just we're big on community and culture and trying to to grow it a bit, and I think it would surprise a lot of people. I don't know many places in the country where you could go out on like a local lake, or like you could go out below our dam here, Chickamauga Dam, and you might see on a random day 6, 7 fly fishing boats. Just it's such an interesting like dynamic of how we've like kind of helped grow and support this like local community. And now there's fly rodders everywhere catching everything. There's nothing that's out of bounds anymore.
and that's what's been so wild for me with this campaign that we're doing, traveling the country, hitting different shops. Is like, I grew up in the Keys my whole life, so fly fishing there, I thought we were kind of, I mean, Montana, and all these places they
Yeah,
fly fish, but you don't really start to think about places like Chattanooga that have these shops, and Atlanta that have these shops. I was so confused when, and I talked about it with the fish hawk video.
yeah,
Why are we here? And they're like, dude, you have no idea.
yeah,
And we
yeah.
started going down, and he's like, guys can be anywhere in an hour, all
Hmm.
this stuff.
Yeah,
And that's where, we met Rob Smith, and then your buddy Cohen.
yeah,
And he's like, you got to go see my buddy at the hatch. You got to go see my buddy at the hatch. And it just
yeah,
seems like every town we get to, I tell them I'm going to this next spot, and they're like, I got a buddy over
yeah,
there that
yeah,
has a
yeah,
fly
yeah,
shop. And it's really how this campaign is going so far. It's just, oh, a town over, I know a guy. A town over, I
yeah.
know a guy. A town. So it's been
It's
cool to have that insight knowledge, because I'm kind of just on a wild goose chase across the
yeah,
country at the moment, which is really
yeah.
fun.
Dragging that boat around is no easy
And
task
no,
either.
it's
Yeah,
it's had its challenges so far. Parking in cities has
yeah,
been my biggest my
yeah,
biggest issue so far. Calling a lot of hotels, and the Panga, guys like you who've traveled, outside the country, or that know what a Panga is. They're
yeah,
driving by me on the highway, and you see them looking at me, looking at the truck, and they're trying to figure it out.
yeah,
There was just a guy at the coffee shop. He's like, what is a Panga doing in Chattanooga? And
yeah,
I'm like, well, let me just give you a little rundown real quick on
yeah.
why we're
And
here and what we're up to.
the fact that he even knows that means he's either a traveling fly rod angler, or has maybe just spent some time in Mexico, but it probably leans towards one of our
That's what
one of our people that you
instantly
ran
pulls
into this morning.
instantly pulls out his phone and shows me like an 8-pound bass,
Yeah,
with his 6 or 7 year old kid. He's like,
yeah.
check this out. And I'm like, that's awesome. Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's funny. I used to live in Georgia, but there's more than that. It's like there's a connection between fly shops from one region to another. Like we've either kind of like fished together, or we know of each other. One thing about being in a fly shop is very often we'll get people like just this Friday during the happy hour, got the whole crowd here, and a couple of guys walk in, and we get to talking, and they're from Atlanta, but they're here for some event or something, and then we start sharing notes on striped bass fishing, which is something I'm a big fan of. It's kind of one of my favorite
I
fisheries.
hear those are like, everyone gets all excited, and that's not
Yeah,
something I've got to talk to people about. Everyone
yeah,
gets really excited about striped bass.
yeah,
And
yeah. It's one of our coming from a saltwater background, they're the only fish in our local ecosystem here that has that same background, the saltwater fish. So one, what that usually means is powerful, very powerful fish, but also, fish that kind of have these cycles. They're used to moon phases and tides and all this sort of stuff, and so you know they're hard. They're difficult to catch. They eat big bait, big fish that they're eating. So we're having to throw, I'm taking my saltwater kit out to catch these fish. So we're throwing like 10 and 11 weights, and we're throwing flies that are sometimes, anywhere from 6 to 10 inches. So it's like one of the rare fish in this region that just has that different aspect to them where they can be really challenging. And then the minute you hook one, you know why you're there. They're kind of all hell breaks loose, almost like catching a tarpon or something like that, especially in these streams with logs and rocks and everything. And all of a sudden you're just, tied up to this really powerful fish, a saltwater fish here in freshwater.
So are you drift boating like some of these guys are? Like, so that's a term that I wasn't super familiar with. Like I said, prior to this, I wasn't huge into fly fishing. I know
Yeah.
of it, did it
Yeah.
as a kid, used to tie flies, and sell them.
Yeah.
But like I'm starting to hear more about this drift boat stuff
Yeah.
and these jet boats, and then I notice up on your wall you got these things that look like you're on the lazy river.
Yeah, the belly boats. Yeah,
The
that's an option for the angler to get out as well. But I mean, yeah, so for guided trips, we run a lot of rafts, because drift boats are great. It's that like classic Western style feel. You get in this either fiberglass or wooden drift boat, and it's got a certain like kind of cool context to it where it like feels historic or something.
it's the nostalgia.
Yeah, yeah. But then the rafts. I mean, in our region, we have a lot of water, which is a great thing, but it's hard for there's not always a boat ramp, first of all, and some of the rivers are very rocky, very shallow. A lot of them are dam controlled, so the flows are up and down. So sometimes rocks are more abundant. So like the raft, essentially like a white water raft that's modified for fly fishing, it's kind of a perfect tool to go down the river and fish. So inflatable sides and all that, so you can hit rocks and it doesn't matter. You don't need a boat launch. Sometimes you just shove it off the
Yeah.
side of a road, into the river, whatever we need to do. And then me personally, I'm in a jet boat, so I have an aluminum. Essentially, like if you saw it, it'd be very familiar to you. It's going to look like a flat skiff with a big front deck and everything, but on the back is a jet motor, and all of a sudden we only need 3 inches of water, to run around. And so we can get into all those rocky streams as well with that. So that's how I fish personally. But for guided trips, we are rowing people down the river.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, coming from what I'm used to, and
Yeah.
then like seeing what you guys are into, and you've obviously traveled and fished
Yeah.
everywhere. Where if anyone could put you in a spot right now and say you can go fishing here right now, put you on a plane, go, what would be your number one fishery to hit?
I mean, I don't know. You hear a lot of people say this, but I think if I had maybe one day left to put it in that scenario, I'd probably want to be on like a good bonefish flat
Yeah,
somewhere.
somewhere like
Yeah.
Belize, the
Yeah, I
Bahamas.
love Belize, and it's hard to pick out one species because when I go, I want to catch it. I want a good shot at some tarpon as well. I love tarpon. It's like
Everyone loves tarpon.
the incurable disease. It's like, especially living this far away, so very often find myself in a plane heading somewhere where there's tarpon, but there's something about like wading a bonefish flat.
Yeah.
To jump out of a skiff or panga and like get on foot and stalk a bonefish. It's like probably one of my favorite things. Yeah.
My buddy Bennett Bacon in Tybee, he was like, we came around Tybee Island and there was bait busting, and next thing you know, there's tarpon blowing up, and we were trying to make it to the Panga. Instead of
Yeah.
driving to the Panga, we decided to take his boat to the Panga,
Yeah.
just because it's easier, and who wants to be in a truck longer when you can just go from boat to boat
Yeah,
to boat
sure.
to boat. And tarpon are blowing up, and he's like, I gotta stop focusing on these things. We gotta get to your boat. And there's another tarpon blowing up. He's like, these damn things will drive you crazy. He's like every kid here now,
Yeah.
that's all they're obsessed with. He's like, that's the number one fish to catch. And
Yeah, it's there's nothing like it. I don't think I was talking about the striped bass and hooking into them, and it's just like chaos ensues. And there's no better fish at that, than like heart stopping than a tarpon.
It's
It's
everyone's
just,
obsessed with them.
and just such a visual thing too. It's like I tell people all the time, like if these striped bass jumped, then I'd probably never leave.
Yeah.
But it's more of an honest kind of fight where they're just digging around and you're just man versus fish. Whereas like the tarpon, it's just the minute they come out of the water, you kind of like, I don't know, you kind of lose yourself a little bit. And then
Yeah.
I think a lot of times you're in that moment like fighting one, and all of a sudden you either lose it or it's boat side, and then it's like, where did the last like few minutes go? It's like amnesia. You just you kind of black out a little bit, and you
Yeah.
just,
You're like, it's at the
yeah,
boat, damn
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. It's just such an ordeal, But that's kind of what I love about it is just it's hard earned, but it's that those are the best fisheries to me. Are like ones that aren't too easy. I love some easy from time to time.
Of course.
We have around here a lot of like cycles in our year. Like today's the first morning where like you felt it outside.
It
It's
was
like
it
a
was
cool
cool. Yeah.
morning, and so like my brain's already like, oh, I know what's coming next. We're gonna have a good kind of time coming up with striper on the lakes and that sort of thing. And so the seasons as they change, it just always gives you something new to look forward to.
So are you doing guided trips, or do you have like a list of guys that you send out and you're
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like
No,
helping out?
I don't personally guide. Uh, you
I
know,
mean, you do have a full shop to run, so
yeah,
that'd be
yeah,
kind of that'd be
yeah.
kind of chaotic
I
to do
kind of
both.
take care of the shop. Got a couple guys that work for me and guide on the side and that sort of thing. Yeah, the guiding aspect is not a huge part of our business model. I mean, we hope to grow it over time, but it's a little bit more just focusing on the inventory in the shop and
Yeah.
doing some hosted travel trips and that sort of thing. I've got really young kids, uh, a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. So I'm just now starting to like see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're like, okay, now I've got a little bit more time. I can focus on doing other things, and we want to do more travel trips. Would be a big part for me. I'm taking a group to Montana here in 2 weeks, and
Nice.
so get to go out west and kind of reconnect with those fisheries that I haven't seen in a long time because I've been
Well,
like dug in with the
you have
shop and kids, and
yeah,
so
it's
now
two full-time
I'm
jobs.
just now picking my head up for what seems like a long time to kind of do some more travel and that sort of thing. But
That's awesome. And
yeah,
that's another part of this whole journey we're trying to promote to people is this isn't just going to be a fishing movie because fishing can be, especially fly fishing, it's a tight niche. And like we were talking about, there's the guy in the town over, the guy in the town over.
yeah,
Like our whole goal with this movie is get the whole family out there.
yeah,
It's a fishing movie, but that's kind of the backdrop of it. It's really a family movie. So you can
yeah,
get
yeah,
everybody out. The wife would be interested, I'm sure. Like I was telling those other boys, is they're probably tired of listening you talk about fly fishing. For the most part, it's you eat, sleep,
yeah,
breathe
yeah,
it. You're on the phone with your buddies when you walk
yeah,
in the door, talking about what you caught the day before, what who caught,
yeah. It
you know,
never ends.
which I love.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so we're out, just trying to give light to this,
Yeah, yeah. I
and
showed my wife the trailer last night actually, and she was like, "Oh, it looks like a good movie," which I don't think she would say about like a normal fly fishing film. But
exactly,
obviously, there's more to it, and then it kind of strikes a nerve. Like with me, I mean, there's things you can look around the shop, and that's my grandfather's like cleaning board there, and his bass mounted on the wall, and so for me, like fly fishing is that it's kind of like a little bit of a time machine where it just connects like generations. Where there's times where something as simple as like catching a bluegill, which we do fairly often, and every time I see one, I think of my grandfather because that's like how I learned to fish, and so there's all these like life lessons and memories that this thing like ties to like this much bigger picture. It's not just about the fish and the fishing. It's like the friends and the family and the people that you spend time doing this with that you might not realize it when you're doing it, but like there's a bigger connection there.
yeah,
There's something that kind of
it's a
it
big
transcends the generations of I hope that my daughter, who I'm now teaching to fly fish, my 8-year-old, she's pretty good at it so far.
Is she gonna start out
Maybe,
fishing you?
yeah, and maybe one day this will be like our connection point. Like something to just
wherever
tie us
she ends
together.
up,
Yeah,
she's coming back to fly fish and sending you pictures in
yeah, yeah,
Montana and
yeah.
bigger fish than you've caught. And you're
Yeah,
like,
probably.
wait a second.
Yeah,
I
yes.
maybe taught you too much. Like,
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like her and I, we go fishing fairly regularly during the summer when she's out of school. And I don't take her to do the challenging stuff yet. We're not striped
she is
bass
8.
fishing and
She
some of
is
that.
8.
Yeah.
So
But we have like our white bass, that is a really interesting fishery. Like here, where any evening now we could go out below the dam and the white bass school up, and it's going to be kind of similar to some of the what you see in saltwater, where they're schooled up, they're pushing bait to the surface, and there's just pop, 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 and there's little threadfin shad that are flying through the air, and they're getting pummeled left and right. It's a really bad place to be a shad. But I'll take her out there, and it's very like exciting. There's always something happening, and we're catching a lot of fish.
yeah,
And so like right now, I'm just trying to like plant that seed of like this can be fun. I don't want to drag them out and be like, really pushing the limits of our friendship by
yeah.
dragging them through some like tough fisheries. So right now we just go out and we kind of do the easy stuff. Yeah.
Make it exciting.
Yeah,
Make them want to do
yeah,
it again. Make
yeah,
them be excited when they see the boat hooked
yeah,
to the truck. And
yeah. And now she asked to go, which is like for
huge
me
success.
that's
Yeah.
all I can ask for.
No,
Sure.
no, honey, I want to go fishing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
for me, it's for her.
And it gives me a pass with the
Yeah.
wife too. Kind of get to take the kid out and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's definitely one of those sports, if you will, that I think you know it does connect people and families and generations and that sort of thing, and even people you don't know, like fly fishers from one town to another. We all kind of share this thing,
Yeah.
and it's I don't know. You see a rod rack on top of a truck going down the road. You don't know them, and you wave
Yeah.
anyways. It's kind of one of those things.
We're automatically friends.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we like the same thing, I
yeah.
guarantee.
Or the right stickers on a truck. You're
Right.
traveling, you see a sticker on someone's truck, and you're like, I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I've been to that shop.
yeah, yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
was. I was on the way up, and there was a guy with a rod rack on top of his truck, and he's doing this, looking at me, and like trying to figure out what's going on.
He's trying to scan that code on the side of the truck.
Let me tell you, that's caused a little confusion at some red lights. Some people have missed their lights because of me, which is, it starts with, as you see that profile, that panga behind
Yeah,
you, and that's what probably starts to grab attention.
Yeah.
And it's got a big Belize flag on it with a bonefish down the side. And
well, it's
and
grabbing attention right now out there.
100%. You weren't kidding when you said this was the busiest road in Chattanooga.
Yeah, yeah.
I've pulled all through town, no issues. And just parking here, I was like, well, we're definitely waiting for a red light before I get out of the truck.
And Monday morning, maybe not the worst time, but yeah, we're kind of like right here in the heart of the city, just off downtown, kind of an uptown area. But yeah, this is a main boulevard here for Chattanooga traffic. So kudos to you for getting that big boat parked on the curbside there, which I do all the time, but my boat's not quite that big.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, your buddy next door, he's like, hey, they're closed on Mondays. I don't want you to have to like wait out here all day hoping up they open.
Yeah,
up.
that's
like,
my landlord.
Oh,
actually.
is it? Yeah. He's like, do you know him? I was like, not yet, but he's coming. He's like, okay, cool. I didn't want you to like sit out here all day waiting to buy a fly. And I'm like, thanks, I appreciate it. Well, he saw me go in and out of the truck like 100 times. I was trying to make sure I had all my stuff, and I'm like, oh, grab this, grab that, grab this, grab that.
I mean, even like dragging my jet boat, my skiff down here, it turns a few heads, but all of a sudden you see that thing, big white and turquoise boat, it definitely screams, look at me.
Yeah, there's no blending in. When I was in Tybee, we went to lunch or dinner, and some guy, my buddy, he's really well known there, has a bunch of businesses. Everyone knows him. He's lived there his whole life. Some guy sits at the bar and he goes, dude, what's with that dude with the panga staying at your hotel? And he's like, it's this guy. And he's like, dude, everyone's talking about it. He's like, he pulled through town with that. No one's seen one before. He's like, no one's seen one in person before. People are trying to buy the boat like crazy.
Yeah.
If I was selling raffle tickets for that, I could be retired by the end of this trip.
Good idea.
I'd like to keep it.
Is it your boat?
No, but I've only used it a few times, and I'm having a blast.
That would get a few people excited for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
I come back from trips, like we'll go to Mexico or Belize and fish out of a panga, and sometimes I'll come back home and I'm like, man, there's some places where I would love to have one of those, especially when boat wakes are up, and I mean these things like take waves like you wouldn't believe.
And I wish the camera could capture the waves. Everyone knows, like, it's with anything, how rough it is. The
Yeah.
the phone camera never really captures it.
Yeah, sure,
And
sure.
we're out there, and it had to be an honest six because there was that hurricane, I think Aaron,
Yeah.
off the coast,
Yeah.
and the guy's like, "Hey, we're gonna take it offshore, and then we're gonna come around, and we're gonna go back inside this little inlet." He's like, "Are you okay with that?" And I was telling him, I'm like, "The boat's only been put together for a little bit of time, but
Yeah.
like if you feel comfortable with it, I do." And we're coming up these big waves, surfing them down, going up, not getting wet, and then next thing you
Yeah.
know, we're in 10 inches of water, floating and casting the shore bank for redfish,
Yeah.
and we did great. It
Yeah.
was a little slow day, because of the
Yeah.
weather and stuff, and
And
but
down there you get these really big tides too, if you're
that
not used to that, with the further, that's always an interesting part. If you look at the eastern shore of the US, the further kind of west the bank drifts, you get bigger tides.
yeah,
So, out in Virginia, smaller tides. You get down there in the low country, that kind of deep cut
yeah.
of the eastern US, and like you get big tides. And so you got to know what you're doing. You got to know
Oh,
where to be and where not to be at certain tides, because you're going to get 6 to 7 foot of difference.
that's
Yeah.
what I had no idea was that big. We're used to 1 to 2,
Yeah.
which can get you into quite some
Oh yeah.
trouble.
Oh yeah. There's a
Six
lot
to
of
eight,
skinny water down there.
6 to 8 can get you in tremendous trouble.
Yeah.
And Captain Bennett was like, he's like, "Do you want to drive the boat?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I think I'm good." Like, I was like, "How
Yeah.
long is it until Cito can get to us?" And he's like, "Well, where we're at now, it's about an hour and a half." And I'm like, "I think I'm okay.
and
Like, I
and
think I'm
if
good
if they can get to you,
if
right?
they can
Yeah,
get to me."
there's been a lot of guys who spent the night on a boat out there.
I guarantee
You get
it.
stuck on some flat somewhere, and but they have a lot of. I love those fisheries down there, and that's the one thing when you ask me, like, if there's one fishery I'd like to be in, Bonefish Flat. There's nothing like it. But, if you can get that flood tide down there in the low country where all of a sudden water's way up and it's in the grass and it's just tails of redfish through the grass, it's like pretty,
Yeah.
pretty hard. That's a close second for me, which is just, such a unique thing to do. But yeah, I could imagine you get in some trouble, with a boat that big if you don't know where you're going or what you're doing.
Yeah, and I have no idea where I'm going up here. As soon as we
Yeah.
got out of the Keys, it's all new land to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to a ton of states I've never been. I've driven through Tennessee. I've never been to Chattanooga. I got to, fortunately enough, I pulled up on my maps. I saw that big river. I imagine that's the main river,
Yeah.
just inside town here.
Yeah, 12th largest river in the nation. So, it's big. It's kind of formidable. You got these big dams, and they're controlling and releasing a lot of water, and it really turns into like lake river, lake river. You just have these dams that kind of stop water and then let it all flow, and so it's a big watershed. There's a lot to learn. We're still learning things. There's tons and tons of species. We host every year a multi-species tournament every the first weekend of May every year. Our Anything Goes tournament where we purposely set people out, like, catch as many species as you can, and
That's cool.
there's some rules there. They have to be 10 inches or better to like count, but everyone, you essentially win by catching as many species as you can. And during the course of a tournament, we'll catch anywhere from 15 to 18 different
It's a lot of
species.
species.
Yeah, so there's that. These watersheds here, they hold a lot of fish, but not all of them are easy, but there's always something to do. It's almost, between when I wake up on like a day where I get to go fishing, sometimes it's like a little bit of paralysis where you're like, oh, what do I want to do? Do I want to, drag the skiff up here and go musky fishing? Do I want to catch striped bass? Do I want to go smallmouth fishing? Do I just want to go throw poppers for bass or something? Or trout fishing or whatever it is. There's like so much that it's almost too much, but it's kind of fun because you have, hopefully a whole lifetime to like figure it all out.
Yeah, keep trying
And
new
I
stuff.
still am. I mean, there's lakes and rivers I've been meaning to fish since I got here 8 years ago that I still haven't gotten to because there's so much other water in between. So it's really a unique area if you look at Chattanooga on the map and just how much water there is, from small creeks to big rivers and everything in between. So it's kind of like if you wanted a landscape to like just spend a lifetime figuring it out and out there adventuring and kind of looking for the next thing, this could definitely be
You
it.
could spend a lot of time out here exploring new stuff and probably
Yeah,
never get bored.
exactly.
You know,
Yeah, for someone with me, kind of, ADHD, it's kind of perfect,
I'm
and
right there
also
with you.
kind of the worst
Yeah,
sometimes, because again, I get like locked in. I can't make a decision some mornings. I've had, there's been a lot of days where I'll literally flip a coin. I'm like, what do I want to do? And that sort of thing. So it keeps it fun.
yeah.
And it's a beautiful area of the country for sure.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's been great being in Chattanooga. If you guys are here, come check out the Hatch.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool spot, and if you don't know anything about fly fishing, on the bright side, they have a bar here, and I'm sure if you have enough beer,
Yeah.
they'll convince you you're gonna start fly fishing, and
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
just come by to come meet him and talk to him, and hopefully we see you out in the movies, and
Yeah.
hopefully run into you again. And it's been awesome you having me here.
Yeah. Glad to have you.
You weren't open up today, but I appreciate you open up the shop that we come by.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're
Absolutely. Glad to have you.
and where are you located here? What's your address to the Hatch?
3227 Brainerd Road here in
Perfect.
Chattanooga. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Chattanooga's been good so far. We're gonna see what we get ourselves into.
Yeah. Yeah. We might try and get out on the water. We're trying to
Yeah. If we
trying to pinpoint it, but yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to be anywhere per se next, so we got the whole day to figure it out.
Okay.
It was
Sounds good. Yeah.
awesome
Thanks for
meeting you.
stopping by.
Thanks for having us. Check out the movie and come check out the Hatch in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Absolutely.